Welcome everyone to another episode of Tips from My Garage. My name is Lisiate Tonga. I'm the father of two boys, husband to a beautiful wife, owner of online consulting business Upgrade Version U.0, and author of ebook Q&A Between Two Addicts. And today I want to talk about all the lies that we tell ourselves. And I'm going to be speaking about it in the context of drugs and alcohol addiction. People that are chasing the fast life often believe that it can never happen to them. I'm different. I'm not like everybody else. I'm stronger. I'm in more control. I'll never look like that. I'll never be like them. I'm too savvy. I'm too smart. But also nobody enters the fast lane or the fast life with the intention of becoming an addict. And so you're not going to hear people go, oh, I want to drink so that I can be a drunk, or I want to do drugs so I can become a drug addict. You're never going to hear these things. Nobody plans to become an addict. Everyone begins with the intention of just having a good time. I just want to chase the buzz. I want to try it out and see what it feels like to get drunk. And maybe you haven't been drunk before, you've never smoked before, or you've never done a lot of things before, but there's an excitement in the unknown. There's a novelty there that drives us to want to scratch that itch. And also, I don't think that people are actually doing this on their own. People don't start out doing drugs and drinking alcohol by themselves. A lot of this behavior is learned in the home. It can be learned through the examples that others in the home are setting for them. But if it's not in the home that they're learning it, then it's outside of the home. It's in the peers that they have, it's in the groups that they identify with. The age group where people want to start belonging is when they start becoming more vulnerable to the pressures that come with the peer pressure that comes from wanting to belong, wanting to be a part of a group, not wanting to be a cast out or wanting to be a cast out. Everyone wants to blend in. Nobody wants to be left alone. The motivation for us to be accepted is a powerful motivation. And it is a motivation that is great enough that we will compromise our standards and our values to have that acceptance. And I know this from my own personal experiences when I was in my adolescence, when I started dabbling with drugs and with alcohol and with smoking. It starts out with just a cigarette here and there. And I on my own, I would have never really wanted to smoke a cigarette. The reason I wanted to try smoking cigarettes is because I wanted to be like the others. I wanted to be accepted. I didn't want to be the odd one out. I didn't want to stand alone. I wanted to be a part of the group that I felt was the best group to be a part of. And this group had a certain set of values and standards, and they weren't exactly aligned with my standards. They actually weren't aligned with my standards, but I was willing at that point in my adolescence, in my teenage years. I came to a point where I did rationalize in my head and say, okay, it is going to be worth it for me to sacrifice or to compromise my standards to have this, to be a part of this peer group. that became really important motivation and driver for me. And that's how I started with smoking cigarettes, and that's how I started to drink. And also I wanted to be a rebel. I wanted to go against the grain. I was going through a period of my life where things weren't really going well at home. In my opinion, I just felt like the rules that I had in my home were too strict, and they didn't allow for me to have fun or to be with be with my peers. Those rules and standards that I had had in place were conflicting with my desire to want to belong. And so when things aren't going well at home, it's much easier to be able to engage in things that are going to be contrary to the values that you have, because there's a justification there. Like in your head, you're saying, okay, I don't want to do what they're doing at home. Home is not doing what I want them to do. And so I'm going to just go and do my own thing and live my own life. And so I guess I'm just gone on a little bit of a tangent there. But what I'm trying to say is that, nobody, I didn't go into dabbling with different vices, with drugs and alcohol. I didn't go in there with the intention of becoming addicted. I wanted to have fun. I wanted to be with my peers. I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to feel rebellious. I wanted to go against the grain. I wanted to be recognized and known. I wanted my identity to be associated um, with others that were on, in my opinion, a higher pedestal than what everybody else's was. And so that was my main driver and motivation. And that was enough for me to compromise my values and to start dabbling. And so I never started out like, I wasn't drinking every single day. I wasn't getting drunk every day. I was just, it was just whenever we could. As teenage kids, it's like whenever you can get the alcohol, whenever you can get the drugs, or whenever you can get the cigarettes, that's when you did it. But when it started becoming problematic is just once the hooks of the vices get in. So once the hooks of the alcohol and the drugs get in, then there becomes another rationalization that happens in your head, and that is that you're the exception to the rule. So even though you are partaking, or you may be using it more frequently than what you did when you had started, and you're doing it more than just recreationally now, it's just kind of, it's more consistent, it's more frequent, then there's another rationalization. I start saying to myself, I'm not going to get addicted, or I'm not going to become that kind of a drunk, I'm not going to become that kind of a drug addict. I'm different. I'm the exception to the rule. You know, I'm more intelligent. I'm smarter than those other drug addicts and drunks out there. I'm stronger. I'm more unique. I said all these things to myself. I just kept going about, the different ways that set me apart from everybody else. I'm wiser. I can make better decisions. I'm more intellectual. I'm this, I'm that. I'm the exception to the rule. So, I know that people do get addicted when they start using more frequently, but that's not me. I'm the exception. And when the truth finally hits, for a lot of people, it's a really bad way to find out. And I think that mine was a bit more merciful, I would say. A bit more merciful than how other people have found out, because when some people find out, by the time they find out, it's too late. And so the fact that I found out with enough time to correct myself I feel like that I'm blessed in that sense, because not a lot, I know a lot of people that weren't lucky. It's really interesting because I went for decades with this same kind of lifestyle, not believing that I had any kind of an issue at all. I always believed that at some stage later on, I was going to be able to correct myself, but that was going to be down the road. I'm too early in my prime now. I'm too young. I still have a lot of life to live, a lot of good times to have, a lot of parties to go to, a lot of drugs to do, a lot of alcohol to drink, a lot of life to live, I guess you could call it. I mean, that's what I was calling it. You can call it whatever you want, but that's what the fast life is all about. That's going at the speed of life and even faster than that, from my late teens even into the early 30s, where that whole period of time is just a blur. And I never once thought that this was a problem, that this was going to be problematic. And I think a lot of that is because the company I kept was also in the same boat. So we really never looked at each other as like, oh, you have a really big problem, or I have a really big problem, because we were all doing the same thing. And we seemed to be fine with that because, like we had some good times. I can't lie about that part. Like, there were some times that I had that I'll always remember and always cherish as some of like my some of my fondest memories that I have. And so I can't take that away, and I can't deny that those times that we had, were that there was a period of time in my life where I would have called those the best years of my life. I could say I can reflect back at that and say, yes, this was a period of time in my life that we really lived it up, and we really did things our way. And and so, no, nobody's calling you out. I'm not calling anyone out. We're all living on the same level. We're on the same wavelength. We're on the same trajectory. So no one's really kind of looking outside of that, because we're focused on that one. We're driven by that one thing, and that's really to live for the moment, to get to that rock star status, to get to that status where you could say, "Oh, I can be on multiple drugs and alcohol and vices simultaneously and still be well poised and maintained." And that this, believe it or not, was a goal. Is just to see how many drugs we could be on simultaneously, and see how, and still be poised, to see how poised we could still be even under those circumstances. And like, for some reason or that was like the pinnacle. That was like, that's status. That was, I mean, we literally called it the rock star status, if we could reach that point. But when the truth hits, when the truth comes out, for me, the way that it came out was through other people telling me about it, saying, "Hey, um, do you know that you did this, 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 and this?" And I would have no recollection. And we'd have a laugh about it or whatever. But these are the people that are in my peer group, and they're the ones that are telling me, "Hey, blah 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 blah." And for me, I'm like, it really stung my ego, because I always prided myself on how poised I could be under the influence. But for me to not know what I was doing, and also for some of that behavior to not be, behavior that I would accept of myself, like below par standard, or not what I would expect of myself to do, and especially under the influence, it just really bothered me. It really bothered me. But it was like, I almost felt at that point that there was nothing I could really do about it, because I knew I was going to go back and continue to do the same things, to indulge the same way that I was indulging, and then I would put myself into that situation where those things would happen again. And then I would have these conversations and with people that are around me saying, "Hey, do you remember you did this and this?" And I have no recollection. And then it's like, well, I don't really want to know what I'm doing. So I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing because I really want to not remember or not have to face the fact that I'm doing these things that are out of character for me personally. And because that would just really grind at me. So that was when the truth really hit for me. And then there's the whole thing with, okay, things are starting to get worse. My financial situation's getting worse. My, I'm with my bills. I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul. I'm taking money from my phone that's meant to go to pay for my phone to pay for my utilities, and then I'm taking money that I'm supposed to pay for my rent and paying it for my car. And then so I'm trying to do this juggling act to maintain this juggling act with my finances just so I could maintain my usage, because I needed to have a certain amount of drugs, I needed to have a certain amount of alcohol, I needed to be sedated at a certain level in order for me to be able to get to sleep at night, and I needed to be sedated at a certain level for me to behave or to yeah, just to be normal. And and I had to also make sure that there were no lapses, that there weren't going to be any gaps um between my rations. So if I started to run low, then you make sure you put those orders in, and then you do those things that are necessary to make sure that there aren't any gaps there. And then it's just a snowball, because that juggling act cannot be maintained, especially because the majority of the time I'm heavily sedated. I'm fully drunk. I'm fully drugged out. I'm not making the best decisions because I don't have all my faculties. And so it won't take a genius to see somebody that's trying to live like this. It's going to eventually crumble. It's going to eventually start to spiral out of control, which is what it did. And so that's how things happened for me. And the only reason that happened to me was because I started out lying to myself, saying to myself that this can't happen to me, or I'm only gonna do this for this amount of time, and I'm not gonna do this again. Or I'm the exception to the rule. I'm strong, I'm wise, I'm smart, I can get away with doing these things. I'm not like everybody, all these zombies that you see on the streets. I'm not like these other people that are out getting drunk. And I had this, like, I'm better than the complex. You know what I mean? Like, I was like I could at any moment control the situation and just cut it all off. But I kicked that can down the road. I was like, it's not going to be today though, but I can do that. It's not going to be today though, but I can do that. And I know that there's so many addicts out there, and you might be one of them that's doing it right now, kicking that can down the street, saying, "I can do that, but not right now. I can do that, but not right now." And then eventually, the truth will hit. And when the truth hits, it's either going to hit like it did with me, with mercy, and with some luck, you'll have an opportunity to change the direction, or it's going to be too late. And then whatever happens, you know rehab for the rest of your life, psych ward for the rest of your life, jail for the rest of your life, or worse, no life. And that's the reality of addiction. So believing that you are immune to addiction is a dangerous lie. Everyone and anyone can become an addict. If you think about it, we're all on the addiction spectrum in one way or another. You know, we all have habits, be they good habits or bad habits, but we have things that drive us, that we can't live without. Like for example, now, like, I have replaced a lot of my habits with a healthy fitness routine, and this fitness routine is like my addiction now, and the result is way better. The things that I'm doing for this habit are a lot better for me, but there is still some anxiety there when I can't go to the gym, and that's a lot like withdrawal. The trick is, and the challenge is to moderate everything, including the things that are good for us. Could we do 7 days a week in the gym? Yeah. Yeah, you could. But should you? And would it be good still if you had 5 days a week? And would it be good as well if you could just um, take a break? Would that be helpful? Would that be good for you? Yeah, I think if you had a week off after working a while and let your body rest and recharge and rejuvenate and come back, I think that would be a good thing as well. But you can moderate everything. But I'm just saying that everybody is on the addiction spectrum in one way or another. I guess my advice would be is to don't fall for the lie that you can't become an addict, that you're the exception to the rule. You're a superman or you're a superwoman. The truth of the matter is that you're not Superman and you're not a superwoman. And if you think that you are, then guess what your kryptonite is? That's right, it's your vice. Whatever that vice is going to be your kryptonite. The best thing to do is to prevent it from happening altogether. Prevention has always been the ideal. Uh, Prevention has always been the best action to stop yourself from being able to go through that experience in the first place. Because I'll tell you this: once addiction has its hooks in you, it is a fight for your life afterwards. It's literally a fight for your life. And that's a lot harder to deal with. That is a struggle uphill. It's possible, and it's possible for everybody, but it is a dangerous lie that we play with, and it shouldn't be played with. And the best way for us to deal with it is to avoid it altogether, to prevent it. Don't go down the road anyway. You know, People say that, I know you should come here and we'll drink and we'll have a good time. And I'm not saying that you should go out there and not you shouldn't go out there and live your life. You should go out there and live your life, but you need to be aware. You need to be educated on what you're doing, what the choices are that you're making, the direction that it's going to lead you, the road it's going to lead you down if you make those types of decisions. Being aware and being educated on the addictions of drug and alcohol and the consequences of them if you're not careful, is going to be really important for you to be able to make better decisions. But most certainly, the best way to do it is to avoid it altogether, and you can do that by getting around the right people, being motivated by the right things, having the right friends around you, being in the right peer groups, being involved in things that are going to grow you rather than pull you down, and believing that it's not as important as you think to to compromise your values to be accepted. That isn't a good trade-off, even though it may seem like the best decision. it's can't be farther from the truth. Anyways, I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you next one.